Mike Mayock back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Michael?
Richard, I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I mean, splash, wow. What can you say except that this is unbelievable what the Rams did. How surprised were you to hear this news, Mike?
I'm not stunned. And, they call Les Snead Trader Les for a reason.
Yeah.
And he and Jeff Fisher have never been afraid to pull a trigger in either direction in these drafts. I saw Les at the Ole Miss Pro Day, and we talked a lot about different positions, and sitting at 15, I had a feeling he wasn't entirely comfortable with Paxton Lynch staring him in the face in that decision. But at the end of the day, I look at this thing, and the more I've gotten to know Carson Wentz, the more I believe in his upside as a franchise quarterback, Rich, both with the tangibles, the arm strength, the footwork, all the stuff you can see on tape, but more importantly at that position, all the intangibles, the work ethic, the toughness. He smells and looks to me like he's going to be Andrew Luck. He's going to be Tom Brady. He's going to be one of those guys that we talk about in the next 10 to 12 years in the NFL.
And that is some really high praise, certainly coming from you, Mike. It's just unbelievable how this kid has burst onto the scene from North Dakota State and now is going to be the first overall selection in the draft. What can you tell me about his makeup now that he's going to come to the Los Angeles market with the Rams returning to Los Angeles? This entire city is going to be lit up like the proverbial Christmas tree, how he's going to be able to handle all of those trimmings.
Yeah, so far, he's handled everything beautifully. And when I say everything, let's preface this with you're talking North Dakota State, 2-year starter with 23 starts. And how did he go from there to a potential first-round pick to probably the first pick in the draft in the media center that is Los Angeles? And what I would tell you is that he's got Midwestern values. He's never had a B in school. He's all straight A's all the way through college. His work ethic is off the charts. His offensive linemen love him. I spent time in the locker room. I spent the whole day in Fargo, North Dakota at his pro day watching him interact. He's got the respect of his entire team, his entire coaching staff. So I was curious. When he got to the Senior Bowl, that was the first hurdle for me, Rich. And he got to the Senior Bowl. He was the best quarterback there. He was coached by the Dallas Cowboys. And everybody I talked to in Mobile, Alabama, affiliated with an NFL team that spent time with him in an interview was blown away by the kid's intelligence, his work ethic, and all those intangibles. Then he goes to the Combine. Again, not blinded by the lights, all 32 teams there, the scrutiny, the media attention. He handled it all beautifully. So when you ask me how I think he's going to handle L.A., I think it's going to be the same thing. You're going to see a kid with a great work ethic who wants to be the guy. I think, you know what he has a little bit, Rich? And somebody said this to me in Fargo, North Dakota, a coach. He said, Mike, he's a little bit like a Phillip Rivers in that he's the nicest kid in the world during the week, family-oriented, all the rest of it, but he's got a little edge to him on game day, and I like that.
I mean, that's Luck, Brady, and Rivers are the three of the quarterbacks that you've mentioned in this Carson Wentz conversation so far, Mike Mayock. That's why I guess the Rams went ahead and sent all that treasure to Tennessee. And in terms of that pro day, Gil Brandt said it was one of the best pro days he's ever seen. Can you put a little bit more meat on the pro day bones for Wentz?
Yeah,
for me?
And Rich, the best quarterback pro day, to put this in perspective, that I ever saw was Jamarcus Russell. So, you got to pump the brakes a little bit on the pro day thing. But it's important to see quarterbacks throw live. He did everything at that pro day workout I hope to see. He's got an elite arm. He's an elite athlete. He's Andrew Luck / Cam Newton as far as athletic ability. He's 6'5", 237 pounds. He can throw on the move left or right. But what's more important to me than all of those things, that's what I hope to see, and I did see. What was more important to me was a little bit of what I talked about earlier, which was the interaction with his teammates. I hung in that locker room. I just wanted to see how this kid and his offensive line were giving him abuse. He's a big celebrity now. They were laughing and giggling, and I love that. That's who he should be. And then I talked to the head coach, the offense coordinator, and the quarterback coach, and basically all three said, you can't believe what this kid, we give him the whole playbook at the line of scrimmage. He does everything at the line. And then I asked the kid, when I interviewed him, I said, Carson, and this was live. We're doing a live interview. And I said, against San Diego State, it looked like a hard count, and you were able to see a cross dog blitz with two linebackers. You checked out to a quarterback run, and you ran a 29-yard touchdown. And very respectfully, he said, well, Mr. Mayock, that was actually against Weber State. So the kid recognized the play immediately, knew I was wrong, corrected me, and then went on to go through the whole pass protection, run protection. Here's what we did and why. I mean, and again, to pump the brakes a little, you don't make this trade unless you think, you don't give up all these picks unless you think there's a really special individual at the end of it. And the only thing I would say is 23 starts. That's not a lot. He's got to process information a little more quickly, got to get the ball out a little more quickly. But that's what the maturation of a young quarterback's all about.
Mike Mayock joining me 2 weeks before the NFL draft in Chicago, when it does appear that Carson Wentz is going to be the first overall selection for the Los Angeles Rams. He's joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show right now. So that means Goff will be sitting there for the Browns. You think they take him?
And that's entirely up to their evaluation. And if they think he's a franchise quarterback, and remember, they got RG3 sitting there, but if they think Goff's a franchise quarterback, they have to take him. If they don't think Goff's a franchise quarterback, then they take the best positional player available at 2, and then Goff, that's an interesting conversation, is where does he go? Does he get by Dallas? If he gets by Dallas, all of a sudden Jacksonville and Baltimore are in play for either San Francisco or Philadelphia to say, we need to go get the number 2 quarterback. So I think there's an awful lot of fun conversations we're going to have in a couple of weeks.
So if the Browns don't take Goff and you say go for the best position player available, who is that? Is it Tunsil? Is it Jalen Ramsey? Who do you think, Mike?
I don't know. It all depends on who they have. They have so many needs, Rich. I mean, I was going through this the other day, just looking at their roster and what they did in free agency, who they lost in free agency. And they're fascinating with this whole analytics conversation that we're going to have. And it's going to be a full roster makeover. They've gotten rid of a bunch of guys over age 30. And now you sit there and you go, who's the best player on the board positionally? Is it Tunsil? Is it Ramsey in the secondary? Is it Bosa? Is it Miles Jack? I think they're probably the 4 most logical needs. And would anybody come up to get any of them? I don't think so. I think it will start to play out 2, 3, 4. At 4, Dallas, do they take a quarterback with Wentz off the board? Maybe not. People a couple of weeks ago saying, Mike, it's not that. It's kind of a boring draft. And I kept saying, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. This is really cool. And here we go.
Well, nobody's saying that anymore, Mike. I mean, this is kind of like a unicorn in a way, the first overall selection being traded. Doesn't happen too often. Sometimes, as you know, what happens during the draft, as mentioned, the aforementioned Rivers with Eli Manning. But a couple weeks before this is, obviously Les Lee was involved with the second overall selection being traded. But this is huge, 15 up to 1. And interestingly enough, one of the 2s that they used to pry this loose with Tennessee is one they got for Sam Bradford.
Correct.
Unbelievable. It's really the way these things sort of work. Before I let you go, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the hot topic in college football right now at these satellite camps, and where you stand on the issue of these satellite camps and whether they serve a purpose, or you think some of the coaches who think that there's too many of them and it's better to just do away with them are in the right. Where do you stand on this subject, Mike?
What are you talking about, Harbaugh going to Florida and all that stuff?
Well, no, it's the satellite camps, I guess, during the outside of that, not the Harvard, not that, but just a school going ahead and saying, I'm going to hold a camp for prospects off campus,
Right.
And the way that Harbaugh, I guess, chose Alabama or Florida as one. But
Right.
he's not the only one to do it. I had Mike Leach on the show yesterday, and he was flipping out over it, that he can't do it anymore.
I haven't even been tracking all that stuff, but I'm at the point with the NCAA and big-time football and basketball that I think the whole thing's a joke. I think the rule book's a joke. I think we get bent out of shape over things that, they care more about whether a kid gets a plane ride home to see his grandmother who's sick. They care more about that than they do about the things that really do matter. And I think the NCAA almost needs to be blown up. I'm at the point there's no common sense anymore. I think teams ought to have their own camps on their own campuses. They shouldn't be running around the country spending all this money, doing all these things. I think the whole thing needs to get scaled back, and common sense at some point needs to prevail in big-time football and basketball.
Mike, I'm looking forward to 2 weeks from now. I really am. I mean, Chicago, it was such a great scene there last year. And now, obviously the first overall selection is going to be traded. Between now and then, some answers might get filled in. But this really puts it on a whole different level. I'm looking forward to it and hanging with you.
And Rich, don't forget about Tennessee now. All of a sudden, they control the top end of the draft, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them come back into the top 10 somewhere. And whether it's a Ronnie Stanley or whoever it is, all of a sudden, even though Tennessee traded out of one, they're going to control the top end. It's really interesting.
Well, and they've got 2 number ones next year now, too. I mean, I guess that's what you need to do when you have a lot of holes that you need to fill, and one of them is not at quarterback.
Good for John Robinson. Yep, I think it's a win-win for both sides, and it's great to see and hear so much excitement in L.A.
Mike, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. Like I said, look forward to hanging with you for way too much time.
Thanks, pal.
You got it. That's Mike Mayock of the NFL Network. First round of the draft is 2 weeks from tonight. And tonight on NFL Network, once again, I'll be there for 3 hours.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.